Sandy Krebs, but you can call me Chef Viva Vegana. In these videos, I'll be sharing with you how anyone can make delicious vegan food. So let's cook. Chef Viva Vegana here. Today I want to share my recipe for raw manicotti with you. So, let's cook. Over the last couple of days I've shared my recipes for raw sunflower seed basil pesto, raw cashew ricotta, and today we're going to wrap it up by making raw tomato marinara, and then I'm going to do the zucchini noodles and roll it all up and show you what the whole finished dish of raw manicotti looks like. So let's jump into the recipe. I want to start off by mentioning that not all sun-dried tomatoes are created equal. These ones that I'm using are very soft and they don't require any soaking before use. If you're using a very dry sun-dried tomato, you may have to soak them in hot water for up to an hour to get them pliable enough to where they will blend with the other ingredients well. And if you do that, you'll want to save the water that you drain off of them after you've soaked them in case you need to add a little liquid into the recipe. So we're going to start off by putting 3/4 of a cup of sun-dried tomato in. A 1/4 of an onion in big chunks. A teaspoon of salt. 2 cloves of garlic. A 1/2 teaspoon of fine diced serrano. You can skip that if you don't like your food too spicy. And 2 tablespoons of extra virgin olive oil. You can also skip the olive oil if you're trying to avoid fat in your diet. And we're going to put in, for starters, about 1/2 of the 1.5 pounds or 3 large tomatoes. You're going to set your food processor to the low setting and blend it. I'm going to stop and scrape down the sides quickly. So that was about 1 minute altogether. I'm now going to add in a 1/4 of a cup of fresh basil, a tablespoon of fresh oregano, and a teaspoon of finely chopped fresh rosemary. If you need to substitute dried herbs, dried basil and dried oregano, that's fine for this recipe, but I would not recommend substituting dry rosemary because it gets really hard and I just don't think it would be a pleasant texture in this. And the other half of the tomatoes. And we're going to process it for about 1 minute again. And there you have it. Okay, we're going to jump into making the zucchini noodles now. When you're choosing a zucchini to make zucchini noodles with, you want to try and get one that's an even diameter all the way through and not curved. The straighter and the more even the diameter, the better. We're going to cut the end off, and actually I'm going to cut a couple of pieces off the ends here, because if you don't have a mandolin, there's a really fun appetizer that you can do, just kind of putting the raw tomato marinara, some of the raw cashew ricotta, and pesto right on top of these little discs. It's a great raw food appetizer finger food. This mandolin I bought at Liddell. Again, Liddell is not paying me to endorse their store or products, but I shop there because you can find some good deals there sometimes. I got this mandolin for $5 there. Now, it's not a perfect mandolin, and it certainly will not last forever like a $100 stainless steel mandolin, but I've had it for about 1.5 years and it's still perfectly serviceable. When you're using a mandolin, be very careful. Those blades are sharp and you want to keep all your fingers intact. So when you're doing this, you're going to want to slide it with even pressure all the way through. Now, as you can see, this end piece, and actually the first couple of pieces, aren't going to be usable. We need to get down to where we have kind of a wider piece of the zucchini. So I have pretty decent knife skills, but I wouldn't even try this unless I had a mandolin. We're getting closer. I think we're going to be able to use this next one. Yep, that one we could use. So again, you're wanting to apply even pressure all the way through. And I like to take each one off as I'm making them, because if you don't, they kind of stack up and can get bent and then they break and you won't be able to use them. So just remove each one as you go. You can actually save these in the fridge for a couple of days. If you put them in an airtight container and lay a dampened paper towel over them, it'll keep them moist and usable for a couple days. So the next thing I'm going to do is put some marinara on the plate. When the marinara sits for a while, it'll separate a little bit. You'll get kind of this watery liquid there. That's okay, just give it a stir and try to maybe hold the bowl at an angle a little bit and leave that very watery part out when you're putting it on the plate. And then we're going to take 2 of these noodles. We've got one of the skinnier sides and one of the fatter sides, so I'm gonna put a skinny side and a fat side together. I'm just gonna sprinkle it with just a touch of salt and hit it with just a touch of fresh ground pepper. Then we're gonna put the raw cashew ricotta in there. And a little bit of the raw sunflower seed basil pesto. And we're just gonna give it a roll. One more time. I like to finish this dish up by taking just a little bit of the raw sunflower seed basil pesto and mixing that with equal parts extra virgin olive oil, and then giving it a little squirt or dots around the plate. If you don't have one of these squeeze bottles, you can mix it up with a spoon and then just kind of drizzle it with the spoon. And I also like garnishing this with Kalamata olives. It adds a nice flavor contrast. And then the very last thing we're going to do is garnish it with some fresh basil. And there you have it. The appetizer I'd like to show you if you don't have access to a mandolin is just take the discs of zucchini You could put a slice of Roma tomato right on top of the zucchini, or you could use the marinara, the raw marinara. And some fresh basil, just for fun. I hope you enjoyed this recipe for raw manicotti. I hope you like and share the video, and I especially hope you'll subscribe to my YouTube channel. So until next time, let's cook.